Nathalie's menu today is perfect for fuss-free entertaining. She starts with sweet potato apple Vichyssoise, which can be served warm or cold. The main course is an Oriental adaptation, Hoisin and honey pork loin, accompanied by sesame noodles with broccoli. Cumin party biscuits are Nathalie's new twist on an old favorite.
Hello, I'm Nathalie Dupree, and before I show you my Hoisin and honey pork loin, I just want to stir together here some leeks and apples that I've got cooking. Today's menu can be prepared over the course of 3 days. Of course, you could do it all at once if you wanted to, but if you can get yourself into the rhythm of cooking a little bit and working a little bit in the kitchen over a period of several days, you'll really be able to enjoy your party a lot more. So the first day, you would want to marinate your pork loin. Now this is a hand of ginger, a gracious plenty of ginger, but we don't need anywhere near that much. So I'm just going to cut off what I think we need, and then the rest of it I'm going to cut into pieces and put into a jar. Now you can put it into a jar of vinegar or a jar of dry sherry, or you can put it into something else like vodka, but if you prefer not to use alcohol, then you can go ahead and just take it and put it into the freezer. Once it's wrapped, wrap it and put it in the freezer and freeze it in pieces so that you can pull off what you need. It gets a little spongy, but if you're going to cook it, it doesn't matter. And actually in salads, I mean, you chop it so much it doesn't matter. I don't peel it, but particularly if it's this fresh of a hand, and I think this came from Jamaica. It's really beautiful. I got married in Jamaica, so I have an affection for it. But it's up to you whether you want to peel it or not. So as you peel and chop, put the items in your mixing bowl. First of all, I'm going to peel and chop some garlic and just give it a big swack here with your knife. Lay your knife flat, hit it with your hand. Sometimes it's just stubborn, and then the peel comes right off. And this is one of those good questions of what is a garlic, because those two were nestled together inside of another outer skin. I think I better turn that off. And so I think I'll just use the larger one and call it one garlic clove, but it just depends. What a good idea with garlic is to take a garlic clove sometime that's the size that you usually get or that you usually like, measure it with a teaspoon and say, okay, to me, for the rest of my life, when a recipe calls for 1 garlic clove, I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of ginger. Now, as I cut into that, I see that that's got a little green part right there. You need to just get rid of that. Usually I just use my knife and pull it right out. But that little green part is bitter, and when you see it, you need to remove it. Some people always remove it. I cut into the ginger just in slices like this, in case you didn't see what I did, just little tiny slices, and then cut across and down, and it just comes right down. So chop your ginger and move it into your bowl, and I've got some right here. There's your ginger, there's your garlic, and just put it in. And now I've got the Hoisin sauce right here, and I'm going to add some honey to it. Let's see there. Oh, that's great. I'll use this spatula. It'll be a lot easier to get it out of the bowl. And you know, different honeys have different flavors. So there's some honey here and some soy sauce. That's not it. That's rice wine. Rice wine is a wonderful ingredient to keep on hand, and I use it in my other salads as well. Have a big affection for it. So it's Hoisin sauce or Hoisin sauce, depending on who you are. Honey, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, some sesame seeds, and some red pepper flakes. And that's all in there. Now let me show you over here, just show you this green onion in case you want to chop it. Or really, this is a scallion, but it's my flaw. I use the words interchangeably. And you can decide if you want to use the green onion greens or whites, depending on the dish that you want or whether you want them for color. But here's one way of slicing them, whichever end you're using. Just goes through and go like this and slice or chop that way. And if you just want to slice, go like this, but they're really prettier on the diagonal. So you can do it over that way. Now, mix all this together. pour it over your pork loin. And I have my pork loin in the marinade, in a plastic bag here. And we're going to make a decision later about how long we have to cook it, about whether or not I want to fold it in half and tie it, or whether I want to leave it out long and cook it as a long piece. So go ahead and do that. Put that there. Tidy up. Refrigerate it at least 2 hours or up to 24 hours. Now the next day, to roast it, you remove the pork from the marinade. I'm just going to turn over this board so I can use it. And I've got some string tied here. Remove it from the marinade, and of course it would be all coated and luscious. And I like being able to do it ahead of time because when I'm cooking one night's meal, I can tie the other. My husband says that some people only do one thing at a time. Others do two, and I do three, and I think that's true. So just tie it to hold it together if this is the way that you're deciding to do it. Obviously, it will take twice as long to cook it if you tie it, but I think it's also a little moister if you tie it in two. I mean, if you fold it over, than if you leave it out flat. It's really a personal thing, but I like letting it cook a little longer because I find that if I have to go back and pull something out of the oven in half an hour or an hour, that I've just gotten started doing something else. So you roast it at 350 for 2 to 2.5 hours, but a meat thermometer is really important. It should register 150 degrees. And just, this is an instant one, although it's built like the old kind that used to stay in there. And if you need to tent the meat with foil because it might brown too much, go ahead and tent it. And the meat should rest, all meat should rest 10 minutes before you slice it. In fact, many times I just take it out of the oven, throw it in the refrigerator, and slice it the next day. And that does very nicely. Here it is now, so just slice your meat, arrange it on a platter. This is Old Country Rose, which is one of my favorites. I really think it's a shame there's all this clutter around it so you can't see it beautifully. And just snap this a little bit with your sauce. I've got a little spilled on there, but you can see how great and luscious it is. So how wonderful to have such a modern, up-to-the-minute recipe on such an old and traditional and lovely platter. Gives me a good feeling. Now, that's the sauce that's been reduced, but in order to get to that sauce, you bring this marinade to the boil and you simmer it 10 minutes, and then it thickens up to be like that luscious sauce there, and then you nap your meat. The reason for boiling the marinade is obvious. It's because you've had that raw pork sitting in it, and you want to be sure that everything's cooked in there, as well as to boil it down and make it do well. Here we have our sweet potato Vichyssoise. I've got my apples and leeks cooked here. Let me just show you this right here. Now, you bake your sweet potatoes. Here's just a regular old sweet potato, and you prick it 400 degrees for about an hour, or cook them in the microwave for about 9 minutes, and I usually just pop them in the microwave. Let them cool to room temperature, and you just scoop out the pulp. And while the potatoes are cooking, you chop your leeks, and I'll just show you your leek. Here's the leek here. Just take it, cut off the end there, and you want to cut into it to make sure that it's cleaned, or you can even cut into it all the way if you want to, and then wash it, because sometimes you'll get dirt right in there. You can see there's the dirt, and you can just open that up and run it under the water, and then go ahead back once it's clean, and that one would need to be cleaned. It's very sneaky, and then chop it. Go back if you need to, and chop it even more. You don't want to use that white, and sometimes there's a bitter green white part that I don't use, but usually I try to use the whole thing up to this part right here. It starts getting bitter as it starts getting dark. And then you peel and chop and core granny apples. This is a nice little gadget, this apple core. Stick it in, cut them into cubes like you saw, and then you just saute those leeks and apples in olive oil until they're soft, about 10 minutes, and then you add some chicken stock and the sweet potato pulp, and you cook them about 20 minutes. And if the potatoes haven't finished baking or cooling yet, go ahead and just simmer the leeks and add the potatoes when it's ready. Now remove the solids from the stock, and you puree them in the food processor until they're smooth like this. You stir it all back into the stock and season it to taste with salt and pepper. And stir in the whipping cream and thyme. Oh, it's so good. I was going to put that in, but I don't have time. I'll just show you. That's fresh garden thyme, and refrigerate it up to 4 days, or you can freeze it. And if you want to serve the soup warm, heat it almost to the boiling point, but don't let it boil with all that cream in it. It might do. And then put it into a bowl and add a dollop. I think I can get this back in here. Add a dollop of sour cream into the bowl and then garnish it with chives, real quick, with chives or pepper. So here's this stirring very quickly. I keep thinking if I say I'm doing this very quickly that it'll work out. Do it very quickly. You can see how beautiful it is. Get it very smooth, smoother than I am. Here's your sour cream. And your chives, and your grated orange peel.
Hi, I'm Jody Eggleston from Corning and Revere with some great tips for getting even more out of that great time saver in today's kitchen, the microwave oven. I don't know about you, but I don't know how we got along without it. Forget the time-saving aspect of it. It's a great way to cook without overcooking. Vegetables hold their color, their crunch, and their nutrition. And they're cooked in minutes, seconds actually. And don't let anybody tell you that you need special microwave cookware. What home doesn't have these dishes in them? Heat-resistant bowls, pie plates, glass ceramic casserole dishes, they're all perfect for the microwave oven. Take this bowl. In it, I have a head of cauliflower with the core cut out. Just add some water, cover it with a pie plate, or you can use a microwavable dinner plate and cook on high 5 minutes. Test and cook some more if needed. It's sort of like poaching, which, by the way, is the best way to cook fish. Just arrange fish in a pie plate, thicker pieces to the outside, top with your favorite sauce or marinade, cover with a microwavable plate or another pie plate, and pop it in the microwave. Cook it on high. Cooking time depends on the thickness of the fish. Allow 5 minutes per inch at the thickest part. The microwave is a great assistant in the kitchen. I use it to melt butter in a custard cup or even in a microwavable cup like this. This handy batter bowl is perfect for melting chocolate, or I use a smaller one for making sauces. It's easy to hold while you're whisking the sauce, and you can leave the whisk right in the bowl while you cook. Another thing I like to do with a batter bowl is to make rice. And it's wonderful in the microwave, and it's very quick and easy. The nice thing about it is that you can make it in a bowl such as this, and I'd use a plate to cover it in the microwave. And then, when you come back, it'll be nice and hot. I actually do this before I leave for church in the morning, and it's still nice and hot and ready to put into a nicer bowl and serve. Now, we've talked a little bit about sweet things, but one thing I'd like to do today is to straighten Nathalie out. She has said that you can use Pyrex measuring bowls to make candies and brittles. But as the manufacturer of these glass products, we really don't want you to do that. We don't want you making hard candies or brittles because of the high sugar content and the very high temperature. The dishes can actually be damaged. You can do simpler sweets like fudges, but avoid using them for caramelizing, making brittle, or even popcorn for that matter. When it comes to vegetables, you can't beat the microwave for cooking them. These beans are not only hot, they're snapping fresh and crunchy too. And they were done in the microwave. In this dish, which is certainly pretty enough to take right to the table. Another advantage of versatile, go-anywhere cookware. After all, the fun of any meal is in the eating, not in the cleanup. And anything we can do to minimize cleanup is just what the cook ordered.
For nearly a century, Le Creuset's colorful French cookware has been a favorite in kitchens around the world. From its bold finishes and uncompromised quality to its easy-to-clean materials, the brand's range of iconic products are as easy to use as they are to love.
When you're trying to cook ahead to entertain, you're smart the day ahead or 2 days ahead if you keep your meals simple and kind of plan out what you're doing. So in this case, what you might want to do is get a great big pot of water, bring it to the boil, and then add enough noodles for this dish and for another night's supper. So go ahead and cook them. The ones that you're using for tonight, drain and put in a plastic bag and leave them in your refrigerator till you need it. This dish is very filling. You can use it as a main course if you want to. So you could use that for another time too. Get some broccoli and cut it into florets. Let me just show you this right here. And in this case, I would save this stem and use it for another time. Just snap off your florets and throw them into boiling water for about a minute. And then remove them with a slotted spoon or a strainer. I'd remove them here. Run them under cold water, and that sets the color, and that's really important. So you just put them in and boil them, and you'll have two things boiling at the same time. You'll have your spaghetti cooking away and your broccoli cooking away. Or you can add your broccoli to the same boiling water later. That saves a lot of time and also your cooktop space. So your pasta has been cooked according to your package directions, and usually it's 8 to 10 minutes, just until tender. But you might find a place that sells fresh pasta that cooks up a lot faster. So now you have your drained broccoli and you've got your drained pasta, and this is a very lovely thin spaghetti or vermicelli. And set it aside, and I'm going to just put those in there rather than keep holding them. Now, chop your fresh ginger, but if you're serving the Hoisin soy sauce pork that we did earlier, then what you want to do is to go ahead and chop all your ginger at one time, chop all of your garlic at one time. In fact, you might even chop it for the whole month. Put your garlic into a jar in the refrigerator and put your ginger into another jar in the refrigerator or into the freezer. If it's in the refrigerator, cover it, as I said, with a little dry sherry, a little alcohol, and then just pull it out as you need it, and it keeps it nice and fresh. So go ahead and mix your ginger and garlic and some of that oriental dark sesame oil, some chili oil. You can't always find it. You can make your own. You just really just mix some chopped chilies with oil, puree them, and just leave it. It spices it up. A little soy sauce. And then I have here some tahini, which is a sesame paste. And just mix that all together here. I think I'm going to make a mess. Let's see if I can get it all in there. If not, I've got a bigger bowl over here. And just mix it together. I've got rice wine vinegar in here again. It's rice wine vinegar is more subtle. It's smoother than many of the vinegars. Now, if you don't have tahini, and this is not tahini, which is sesame paste, you can use peanut butter. It has sort of a typically Thai flavor. So then go ahead and add your broccoli, spaghetti, chopped cashews or almonds, and toss the whole thing together to coat it evenly. And once again, you can make this ahead of time. Oops. Dropped my diamond again. And refrigerate it at least 2 hours or up to 2 or 3 days. So you see, you can do this dish the same time that you're making spaghetti for your family for another dish. And that night you might just use a store-bought spaghetti sauce in your pasta, and you'd have time to do this. Just keep it refrigerated. Serve it at room temperature or just slightly chilled. And then when you're ready for it, you just sprinkle it with the chopped green onions just before serving it. I have some already done, so I want you to see the slight difference. Oop, there's my teacup. Put that over there. Forgot I put it on top. I'm glad I didn't drop 2 things in one show. It's always humiliating. And you can see here that it's turned color some, so it's got a lovelier color. And just top it now with your green onions. Pretty, isn't it? Nice. Very nice dish. You're going to like it. Now, Cumin Party Biscuits. This makes 24 1.5-inch biscuits, and I like them very small, and I've worked at getting this recipe for just that. It's hard to find the right cutter. Now, toast about 2 tablespoons of cumin seeds, and I always like to give you the exact ingredients when we're baking. The rest of it, you just kind of wing it. By the book or else wing it, but I think you can almost wing it. But with this, go ahead, toast your cumin seeds and then crush them, and you can use a pot like this, a nice heavy pot, or you can use a rolling pin. I usually do them in a mortar and with a mortar and pestle. And then grate your lemon rind. Here's this, and you would just do this, or you could chop it either way. And sift together 2.5 cups of self-rising flour with just a smidgen of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I use a sifter like this rather than one of those things that goes back and forth like that. Now, some people say that you do not need to sift the modern flours because they really are pre-sifted. And I think there's some truth to that, but I do it just because I'm neurotic. Now, go ahead and add your crushed cumin seeds and your lemon peel. These biscuits are so wonderful, and they are perfect with that pork. And let me see, what did I do with this? Oop, I used the wrong whisk. Now that's kind of dumb. Wasn't that dumb? Look what I did. I mixed that with that. Well, I'm just going to have to cut in this this shortening, and it's nice and soft. Don't overwork it. Just let it lightly all mix together. It'll be wet and sticky and lumpy. That's all right. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I've got just a second more to pull it together, and flour your hands and your work surface and turn out the dough. And so let me just go ahead now and turn out that dough. And ideally, you'd be right next to a sink where you could pop that into the sink and let it be soaking while you're doing everything else. Now, pat this out, let's see, to be a 1/2 inch thick. And I do try to cook with a ruler, but particular for these, because if you get them too thin, then they're not moist enough. So let's go ahead here. That's just about right, a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch thick. And go ahead and get your perfect, and it's hard to get this, but shop around for it, sized 1.5 inch round with your cutter, and you always cut from the outside in so that any of the leftover pieces like this you mix together. And then put them onto a lightly greased baking sheet with the sides touching, and you can see that these have been sitting here for a while and the sides are touching of those. And then go ahead and bake them at 500 degrees until they're golden, and that takes about 10 to 12 minutes. Cool them on a wire rack. That way they won't be soggy. And I make them in advance. I put them into a freezer container, and I freeze them up to 3 months, and then you can pull them out when you need them. It's really terrific. And a nice, easy dessert for this might be a cobbler. So I've got a cobbler made here just ahead, and that also freezes. Normally to freeze it, I take it out and put it into another container. If you want a completely different look, if you don't want to use your elegant china or don't have elegant china, here is a very charming dish that a friend of mine, Corey Lewis, at a party for us, and when we got to the bottom of it, and yet very charming, very different. So diversify by using different chinas and potteries.
Entertaining is a snap even for the busiest of hosts with the menu Nathalie prepared today. Sweet potato apple Vichyssoise served warm or cold, Hoisin and honey pork loin, sesame noodles with broccoli, and Cumin Party Biscuits are the prepared-ahead dishes that will wow your guests. Top off the meal with an all-fruit cobbler.